I'm Chloe Jackson. I'm from Frostburg and a descendant of Brownsville.
I'm Caroline Han, and I'm originally from Frostburg.
This is the Brownsville Project. Brownsville was a community of freed Black people that started in about 1866 and lasted up through about 1954. It existed where Frostburg State University stands today. It also includes what's now known as Park Avenue and Mechanic Street. The first property was purchased by Tamar Brown in 1866, and not more than a few years later, the second property was purchased by Elizabeth Jackson, my great-great-great-grandmother.
Before 1866, that area of land that Frostburg State University is now on was owned by Caroline and Nelson Bell. They decided to divide the land into small plots and sell them to the freed Black people of the Frostburg community. The first plot was sold to Tamar Brown in 1866. She was 48 years old. So why are we talking about Brownsville? Why are we telling you all these facts? Why is it important to tell the story of Brownsville?
Well, there's really two key pieces of this story that we have to hold up and keep in mind. The first is that we're talking about 40 families who all came from slavery. And for the first time, they're owning their own property, they're building a life for themselves, and ultimately, this community ends up being displaced. Which brings us to the second piece of the story that we have to hold up, why they were displaced. They were displaced for the expansion of Frostburg State University, which we know has huge positive economic impact for us in this community. It's the second largest employer in the county and the first largest employer in Frostburg.
So there's a way in which we have to hold that telling the story of Brownsville is not just talking about the past, but we're also talking about how Brownsville shows up in our present day lives.
Hi, I'm Chloe Jackson, and I am a descendant of Brownsville.
And I'm Caroline Han, and I'm originally from Frostburg.
And in that video was us 6 years ago when we first began our journey, understanding our coming of age in Frostburg, having never known about Brownsville. Oh my goodness, have we changed and learned a lot.
This is true. For starters, I am not a blonde.
And I had yet to unlock a new level of sleep deprivation brought on by two tiny yet very adorable broke roommates, aka my kids. In all seriousness, when we first wrote this play, our goal was to gain an understanding of our own connection to Brownsville and to share this suppressed and important history with others.
Hey, Chloe, what has it been like when people and institutions who thought that history was the absolute ultimate truth has been found to be missing a few key points?
Emotional, sometimes downright irrational and scared.
So what has it been like handling those emotions when some people want to bring forward the truth, but others do not?
You know, let's just say that I could hold a TED Talk on emotional regulation and social justice work.
So you're saying it's easy? Okay, it's not easy. Over the last 6 years, we have had to fight and navigate so many tropes just so we could begin a discussion in order to get through the sea of emotions for healing.
Ooh, I have a short list.
Okay.
If it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. People didn't know any better back then. It's different now.
Okay, what about these? Why are you making me feel guilty for something that happened in the past? I wasn't even born yet. Or, what are you doing? You're causing trouble. Is this what you want? I mean, we need to move forward. Or,
What do you mean there were Black communities in Appalachia? Appalachia is white and poor. We didn't even have plantations then.
First of all, we're both from here. How do you think that happened? So today, we want to get these tropes out of the way and share with you our journey of working through these emotions as we worked toward truth seeking, truth telling, and repair.
In 2018, we held monthly community meetings, bringing together the descendants of Brownsville and white people who benefited from the displacement of Brownsville. We gave time and space for each group to caucus separately, and then we came back together to share experiences, learn from our experiences, and then document the truth. At the same time, we developed partnerships with multiple Frostburg State University professors, and they had us come to their classes to teach their students about Brownsville. So we've continued those partnerships with the professors, as well as developing relationships with community organizations in our community.
Mm-hmm. Today, we'll perform a few scenes from the original play and stop at certain points to share new insights that we've learned along the way.
We will call these stopping points whoa moments.
Okay, say it with us.
Whoa. Hey, Clory, I think we already have a whoa moment from the 2018 video.
We do, but first, let's just talk about just starting the conversation. I mean, we got a lot of feedback that often came in the form of correction and sometimes criticism, which we welcomed. We learned that we had to get comfortable making mistakes so that people could feel more comfortable coming forward to share their stories. So for instance, in the video, we state that the expansion of Frostburg State University stopped around 1954.
No?
No. We later learned that there were a series of homes purchased by the state for the expansion of the university in 1959, which we'll talk more about a bit later. We also show an image of Dickerson AME Church. We want to clarify that Dickerson and the families that live on Mechanic Street, they're often conflated with Brownsville. Yes, Dickerson is a historically Black church, but it was John Wesley Church that served the Brownsville community.
Are you saying that there have been more than one Black communities in the Frostburg area?
That's right.
Whoa.
A core challenge that we faced was that the history available to us was from historians who had yet to deconstruct their own whiteness or archives of predominantly white institutions. This meant that a lot of valid history was overlooked simply because it didn't align with the colonized historical documentation standards. The fracturing of the Brownsville community stripped away important history, and it happened as the community was displaced over almost a century. As a result, the history was not passed down, and for the descendants that remain, they were so used to being dismissed that they just stopped talking about Brownsville, leaving what I would call an intergenerational harm that we're still on a mission to heal today.
So why don't you set the scene for us?
Yes. So, we will travel into the past. First, Caroline and I will share core memories from our childhood. Then we'll travel way into the past, where I will play my grandmother, Geraldine Jackson. Her friends called her Biggie. She and my grandfather, Raymond Snowball Jackson, fought to remain in Frostburg when their home was sold to the university in the expansion in 1954.
And I will play Mrs. Bauer, a fictional character that we created who is representative of the time period and based on the lived experiences of Ms. Geraldine, who worked as a domestic worker for multiple families in Frostburg. This scene illuminates the very real experience that Geraldine and Raymond had when the forced sale of their home was publicized in the Cumberland Times newspaper.
Now, as you watch these scenes, you may see a common theme emerge around systems and how they affect us then and now. And this is just one example of how using theater can help people understand that history is fluid. It's not set in stone. And when you find those missing pieces, it can reshape your understanding of history when brought back into frame. After the scene, we'll listen for your observations on this method of storytelling during our live discussion. We bring you a piece of the Brownsville Project.
I remember doing a homework assignment in first grade at Frost Elementary. My cousin and I were the only Black kids in class, and our teacher, who's white, is teaching a lesson on immigration. And she wants us to interview our parents to learn about how we came to America. Now, I already know my family didn't immigrate. My parents taught me about slavery at home before I even got to elementary school. So, as a first grader, I'm really concerned about how to handle this assignment. I'm thinking, surely she must not think that everyone immigrated. And at this point in my education, I'm pretty sure that immigration is not synonymous for stealing people and forcing them into labor. I mean, should I just explain slavery to the class so they know why I can't trace my roots? Oh, I could have them watch Roots. I bet they don't even know the Reading Rainbow guy is best known as Kunta Kinte. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to point out another way I'm different from everyone else. So at that time, I decided to focus on just learning more about what life was like for my grandparents. But every time I asked a question, they just seemed to clam up. So I went to my dad, and I had a lot of questions after eavesdropping and grown folks' business. Dad, tell me, why did Grandpap and Grandma have to move into that house on McCullough Street, and why didn't the neighbors want them there? Why did Grandpap have to work 3 jobs? Why do you work so much? Aren't you tired? My dad said, Chloe, some people like your grandpa, your uncles, and me have to work twice as hard to get just as much. Well, that's just the way things are. That's it. No concrete answers, just another riddle that it would take me another 10 years to understand. I was craving information. How did the Jacksons get to Appalachia, and why have we never left? Not one Jackson has moved more than 2 hours from home. That strong connection must be from somewhere. Well, later on in life as an adult, I would come to learn through courthouse records and a newfound friend named Caroline that the Jacksons go back to the Frostburg area since the 1700s. That's why we never left. We built a home. The Jacksons purchased, cultivated, and lost at least 3 homes in Brownsville. This is where we belong. And our presence here today is just a testament to our tenacity. And that's what Dad meant by working twice as hard for just as much.
I didn't learn about slavery at home. I didn't learn about slavery until the 4th grade at Bell Elementary School. My classmates and I were learning about the Declaration of Independence. At the same time, I had checked a book out of the school library called Runaway to Freedom, a story about 2 sisters dressed as boys escaping enslavement on the Underground Railroad. When my white teacher made the statement, "Children, today we are going to learn about the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal." And I was like, what about women? And she said, "Oh, all men means women." And I was like, what about slaves? And she said, oh, well, all men mean everyone. And I was like, wait a second, wait, I'm confused. This doesn't make sense. I just want to talk about this. And I just want to, and she said, "Caroline, that's just the way it was. It's not like that now." I was confused. I had all this empathy for the sisters in the book because they were my age and I had a little sister. It just didn't make sense to me. How could we have a Declaration of Independence for freedom and not everyone was free? I didn't have anyone to talk to about this. I couldn't go to my school or my teacher and talk about it. I couldn't go home. We did not talk about race or whiteness in my home. Where could I go to have a real conversation about this?
Mrs. Bauer, would you like some more coffee?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you. Geraldine, is this your family in the morning newspaper? House being raised. A 6-room bungalow at 67 Park Avenue, formerly owned by the late Raymond Jackson Sr., is being torn down to make room for the expansion of Frostburg State Teachers College. The shrubbery in front of the residence is being used at the parking lot of the college located on Park Avenue. Raymond Jackson Jr. and his family who occupied the bungalow have purchased another residence on McCullough Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, isn't this wonderful news? You've moved into your own home and in such a nice neighborhood, too. Now, I'm sure that teacher's college has paid you handsomely for that wonderful old bungalow. So, don't be shy. I won't blab it to the ladies. Just between you and me, how much?
How much? She really wants to know how much. I wonder if she'd like to know that my husband had to go and swallow his pride and find a white family willing to mortgage their house to us because banks won't even look at an application from color folk. I wonder if she'd like to know that the minute the neighbors caught wind we'd be moving in on McCullough Street, they started a petition trying to keep us Jacksons out. Wonder if she'd like to know about that. Now this here article, this just makes more complications. I don't need the whole town knowing where we're living. It already feels like there's a target on our backs just for trying to have a decent place to live. I best get home and warn Raymond before he reads about this for himself. Oh, Mrs. Bauer, now my mama told me to never talk about money, religion, or politics, so I'll just say I'm grateful for this job to help us start our new home on McCullough Street, and well, I hope those students enjoy that school. Now, how about that coffee? And I'll be out your hair.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's just wonderful that you've helped in the expansion of the Teachers College by donating your home to further the education of young people.